With the Oscars happening just last weekend, the awards always manage to spark controversy because let's be honest, people are never going to be satisfied. Every year, debates break out on whether the winning films genuinely deserve their accolades or not. Were they rewarded for genuine artistic merit, or were they pandering specifically to the Academy's taste? Howdy, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be talking about Oscar bait movies. But what is Oscar bait movies? It is not an official term by any means, but it is commonly used by the film community to describe films that were engineered specifically for the purpose of securing Oscar nominations and even winning those Oscars. Now, Oscar-nominated movies do tend to have some key characteristics that Oscar bait movies try to capitalize on and really squeeze the life out of. As for storytelling, it's usually something hard-hitting or devastating in one way or another. And I've put these movies into three main categories. Now, first is period pieces, biopics, basically anything that's even relatively historical. For some reason, the Academy has an obsession with reliving the past. I mean, stories about war, based on a true story, celebrities who have had tragic things happen in their life. You name it, they love it. If a film is set in a different era, it is almost completely guaranteed to be taken seriously by Oscar voters. Next is disability and illnesses, both mental and physical. These are stories about ordinary people and their extraordinary challenges and how they overcome it. And on some front, these stories are trying to show awareness and how much they care and stand with people who have to go through these things. The problem is that in many of these films, these stories and challenges are often used just to show how much range an actor truly has rather than telling a really raw and authentic story. Last but not least is social issues, but only in ways that are easily digestible and safe for the Academy voters to consume. Usually ending in everyone skipping off into the sunset singing Kumbaya, these films often present race, class, sex, etc. struggles in a way that usually makes the audience feel good about themselves in the end. These films are often in the perspective of the privileged person or the one who needs to learn a lesson rather than those who are actually oppressed by what the film is based off of. But why do these films do so well among the Academy? Because to one extent or another, they feel important. They can attempt to pull some kind of trick to seem deeply impactful and life-altering for the cast, the crew, and the audience. They create a sort of demand for dramatic transformations from the stars both physically and emotionally, i.e. method acting, gaining and losing weight, just going into a state of mind that is probably very damaging for them. Again, this is something that Oscar bait movies capitalize off of. All of these topics typically get watered down by bait films because it's just being used as a guideline for where they actually want to be. Additionally, both Oscar-nominated and Oscar bait movies are very much into dramatic cinematography and score. I mean, even the production design is very notable, at least, and very much often in Oscar bait movies, it's all really overdone and trying to seem more than it actually is. Overall, Oscar bait movies aim to be prestigious, but really just kind of end up being pretentious. They believe that this is what it takes to play directly into the taste of the Academy and really secure those Oscar nominations. The directors or writers or just generally people involved with the film don't really care about what the normal person or average cinephile has to say about the movie. They only care about what the Academy thinks. Now, if you don't know, the Academy consists of almost 10,000 people who are involved with filmmaking. These are the people that these Oscar bait movies are trying to target because these are the people that ultimately make the decision about if they're going to get that sweet little gold trophy. It's one thing for studios to chase an Oscar, but it's another thing in how the Academy chooses to engage and really plays a huge role in encouraging this cycle. As I mentioned before, the Academy loves films that feel important, but it usually stems from a sort of savior complex or even a performative thought. Now, I'm not saying that everyone in the Academy thinks this way. There are so many people who genuinely want to uplift, encourage, engage with, and even make films that can have such a positive impact on the film industry and our just society as a whole. But ultimately, they do kind of get drowned out by their peers. And the reason why so many of these hard-hitting films don't hit as hard as they attempt to is because they're not written by people who've experienced the struggle that they're trying to capitalize on. Now, again, I'm not saying that if you don't experience a certain type of oppression, you can't write about it. But there is a certain point in the creating process where you have to relinquish control to someone who knows more than you. That's why representation matters. And while the Oscars are very important in the film industry and celebrating films that genuinely do deserve it, there are some sneaks in there. The Oscars have always positioned themselves as the gold standard of cinema, celebrating films that embody that artistry, sophistication, and importance that they seek so often. Over time, it has sort of turned into this obsession with prestigious filmmaking, the idea that some films are more worthy than others. And of course, as we all could have figured, money and connections play a huge role in the success of a film during award season. The film industry is a big business. It rakes in billions of dollars every year, but there are very few people in that industry who can actually keep up with the big boys, if you know what I'm saying. They're broke. A lot of people are broke. A lot of people are not rolling in money. But companies will spend millions of dollars on screenings, advertising, PR, whatever it takes to make their movie seem like a big deal. And most of all, they'll reach out to friends for favors, etc., etc. Advertising is everything in the film industry, but knowing the right people is king. And that raises the question, are the films that the Academy considers best of the year simply just due to its advertising and publicity? Additionally, it can be said pretty much without a shadow of a doubt that people go to watch movies because of who is in those movies. For example, people who watched Euphoria probably went to go see Challengers because they like Zendaya, and she had a phenomenal performance in Euphoria, so of course you're gonna think, oh, she probably also had a phenomenal performance in Challengers. But that got me thinking, among Academy voters, is their perceived quality of a film heavily influenced by who's in it? Now, I know the answer is probably yes, because they're humans just like us, but how objective do they try to be, especially when they have peers, colleagues, friends, husbands, wives, children, whoever in those films? Now, you're probably wondering, Nala, what are some examples of Oscar bait films? And the truth is, I don't know. I really don't know. I could not tell you. What an Oscar bait film is truly in the eye of the beholder. What you think could be a cinematic masterpiece that deserves every award that it wins, someone else could think it's absolute trash and is very clearly pandering to try and get an Oscar. Again, every year accusations fly, conversations spark about which films deserve it, which don't, which were clearly pandering. But I will say, during my research, there were two films that I found that were very constantly mentioned as being Oscar bait films. The first is Bradley Cooper's Maestro. Listen, I like some of the Bradley Cooper movies. I'm not gonna lie. I haven't even seen this movie, but a lot of the reviews are that it is very clear that he is trying to be deep where it does not matter. Bradley Cooper has been nominated for 12 Oscars, have won none of them. So maybe he is really just doing anything to try and get those Oscars. The second movie is the 1978 film called The Deer Hunter. Again, have not seen this movie, but it is a war film starring Christopher Walken, so I wouldn't be surprised if it is Oscar bait. I do know that it did kind of set a standard for what Oscar campaigns look like for a movie, but it also did get drowned out because Grease was also released that year, so potato. A film, however, that I will personally accuse of being Oscar bait is Emilia Perez. I hate this movie. 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 It is a bad movie. And it was very clearly made in an attempt to get an Oscar and win a bunch of awards, which unfortunately it did. But I do think it can be used as a perfect example of, is the quality of a movie heavily impacted by who's in the movie? Because Zoe Saldana just won Best Supporting Actress for the movie. We all know that she is a phenomenal actress in everything else that she's been in. Did she make the movie better? I fear she did not. I fear nothing could have made that movie better. But again, that's just my opinion. This brings us to my final two questions. The first being, is it so bad to want an Oscar? The Academy was established in 1927 and the Oscars were first held in 1929. And ever since then, these have become the most prestigious and kind of the highest honor in the film industry. Majority of actors' goal is to be on that stage and accept an Oscar for their hard work, because let's face it, everybody wants to be rewarded for hard work. But for some reason, saying that you want to be rewarded for your hard work, saying that you want an Oscar for a role you worked so hard for is really taboo, because it seems like maybe you're just doing it to get that reward. This is also why I love Timothée Chalamet's SAG speech when he accepted his award, because he, of course, thanked everybody that you're supposed to thank, but he also mentioned that he worked really hard on the film, and he felt like he deserved the award.
I know the classiest thing would be to downplay the effort that went into this role and how much this means to me, but the truth is this was 5.5 years of my life. I poured everything I had into playing this incomparable artist, Mr. Bob Dylan. But the truth is, I'm really in pursuit of greatness. I know people don't usually talk like that, but I want to be one of the greats. I'm inspired by the greats. I'm inspired by the greats here tonight.
People should say that more, because that is what they want. There's no shame in wanting to be great. It's not bad to want an Oscar. And that leads us to my second question. Is it bad to make films specifically to win an Oscar? In short, yes. Morally, yes, it is. A key characteristic of Oscar bait films is that they're not for me and you. They are for the Academy and for the Academy only. We are cut out of the equation entirely. They exist only for the purpose of winning an Oscar, and usually that comes at the expense of somebody's struggle that they are misrepresenting in their film. They're simply using these adversities so that they can be celebrated and telling the story and giving a voice to the voiceless, essentially. And personally, I feel like making a film specifically to win an award is kind of defeating the purpose of filmmaking in the first place. With all that being said, I do feel like the Oscars are really evolving. While the Academy still has a clear preference for those really prestigious dramas, they have been growing in willingness to accept films that break out of that traditional mold. I'm talking genre films, international cinema. More unconventional ways of storytelling have been really making their ways into a lot of major categories. From Parasite being the first non-English movie to win Best Picture, and Everything Everywhere All at Once absolutely sweeping the Academy season with its unconventional genres and storytelling. You can tell that the Oscars are really going in a different direction. It's pretty clear that the definition of Oscar-worthy is really starting to shift. There's been a bigger push for diversity, both in the stories being told and who's telling them. While the Oscars still have a long way to go in terms of breaking free from their old biases, they really are moving in a direction that breaks free of the formulas of the past and really welcomes new, innovative, creative storytelling. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure you like, subscribe, comment down below what you think an Oscar bait movie is. I love you so much, and I'll see you in the next video. Smooches. Bye.